Welcome to Facing the Moment, brought to you by the Foundation for Self-Leadership. In these episodes, we will address various crises and focus on how to navigate them with abundant fortitude and a bit of hope. As we discuss relevant observations together, we will identify meaningful actions that will generate valuable insights. You can download all episodes on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube.
I welcome our listeners to this episode. In this episode, we will attempt to wrestle with the harshest effects of individual and collective trauma, the violence of wars. This is indeed a very difficult subject, which may be triggering to some of you. If at any time you feel uncomfortable, please sign off. You can always come back and listen to this episode when you're able to. Ever since the onset of the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, individuals and families have faced unimaginable loss, pain, and horror, dealing all the while with fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. Besides embracing raw survival in unspeakable war conditions, they had to adjust to a new unknown, an uneasy reality, hopefully short-lived, where nothing is usual, familiar, or normal. They had to fend off attacks on national identity and dignity. In the midst of all that, those of us who observed with great caring and concern noted with awe the inspiring fortitude of the people and society at large, pulling together and supporting each other. I saw this firsthand, as we were actually privileged and fortunate at the Foundation for Self-Leadership to have been able to provide peer support and engage in an online community for 45 Ukrainian therapists, starting in the second year of the war. An experience we learned was quite valuable to them, helping them feel connected during these turbulent times. We will hear more about that and much more about how one could face the tragic moments of war with perspective, strength, endurance, and to state what is self-evident, nothing can prepare us for that. I'm pleased to be joined for this important and timely conversation by Anastasiia Shyroka, PhD, who will help me reflect on what it means to carry the weight of war while tending to the healing process, and to tell us how Ukrainians are able to rise each day in the midst of the scary, devastating conditions. Anastasiia, welcome.
Well, thank you, Tufik, for inviting me. It's my pleasure to stay here with you.
Thank you. It's my honor to have you. Anastasiia is an associate professor in the Department of Psychology and Psychotherapy at the Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv, Ukraine, from where she is joining me today. She has to her name more than 24 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. Anastasiia, who had been trained in IFS, which was thankfully made possible to the Foundation's efforts, has hosted conferences on the trauma of war and an IFS training in Lviv, offered by Tom Holmes, a leading voice and teacher in the IFS community and a friend of the Foundation. She was also instrumental in launching the Ukrainian Institute of IFS, through which the first IFS training for Ukrainian therapists will be held starting in July 2025. Anastasiia was also a very active language interpreter as part of the Foundation's Ukraine Relief Initiative that I mentioned, quickly emerging to assume a leadership role alongside a few other Ukrainian therapists we applaud to bring IFS as a healing modality to Ukraine. Anastasiia, is there something else you'd like to add besides what I shared that is relevant to this conversation today about you?
Probably I would like to introduce myself from couple of different perspectives.
Please.
First, I was born in Ukraine, and still I'm living in Ukraine. And also I'm a mother with 3 children. And also since the beginning of war, basically, on my background, I work at the university, as Tufik just mentioned, but also since the beginning of the war, I work a lot with different communities, and I hope to share some of my observations and experiences here with you. It's the people from frontline territories, displaced children, and many people who currently help as a volunteers or NGOs, so etc., etc. So it's quite a lot people's stories and things going through my eyes and mind. Also, I, together with my colleagues, as you mentioned, we work hard to show the people in Ukraine how healing and the healing power actually of IFS, and we do a lot of making IFS accessible in Ukrainian language, which is, to make a dictionary and basic language, it's quite a big work.
You agree?
And also we added to the first book translated into Ukrainian, which is Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts. I think it's fun. It's very important and basic text that people can relate to. So I hope that one day this knowledge will be much more spread in our communities. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anastasiia, for everything you're doing and for this very significant qualities that you have developed and cultivated throughout this time, especially during, like we said, the ravages of war. So if you're able and willing, might you take us back to the early days of the war, which we know, sadly, is still ongoing? Where were you emotionally, spiritually, professionally? Please share what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. Actually, I try to remember those days, because I have a feeling that it's just 3 years, but such a lot things happened. This feels like entire life. So I remember that it's something like when you fall asleep in one reality and wake up in completely different reality, which you're not prepared to at all. And you start to do something, but it feels and look very absurd, like something that doesn't feel into the reality you lived in before, but it still doesn't fit into a new reality. For example, I didn't, first months when the war started, I didn't change clothes. I go to the bed and wake up in the same clothes. It feels like kind of protection, and kind of preparedness to run somewhere or to do something. Or my children start to sleep under the sofa, like big bed, which doesn't make sense, but they decide that it will be something that might help. Or we were very hesitant to open the curtains on the window, because we believe that it is kind of rockets or something bad might happen if you open the window and the light will be there, or it's something which also doesn't make sense, but you try to fit yourself in your reality. It's kind of reality of danger, and you doesn't know how. Then some basic rules start to evolve, but it was later. I don't know, 10 days or 20 or other. So it was very different the experience. So it sounds like your previous life stopped exist till this moment. Yeah. Also, I remember when I heard the first time the air alarms sounds, and it was awful, and I feel it like a nausea. It was very physical, it felt. And I know that many people have a very strong reaction to this sound. Currently, it's in our regular day-to-day life. Some people, hear the sound a couple of times a day in some regions. But in the beginning, it was something very devastating from inside. And from the first days of war, we start to help other people because, as you mentioned, we live in Lviv, and we've become probably one of the main humanitarian hub that many people who cross the country to go abroad or who run away from their cities, who was completely destroyed or occupied immediately by Russian army. So many people need basic help, right? Like blankets, pillows, medicine, food. I remember that in our city, almost all schools becomes the shelters immediately. Not only schools, but big stadiums or public centers or whatever, who have some spaces where people can stay, at least for some time. They provide this help, and our university as well. It doesn't stop stop
The operation.
The operation, at all. We actually become a shelter and a humanitarian hub, and it is in a philosophy of our university in general, service learning activities. So most of our courses become a service learning. So students were fully engaged in helping people, in making posts to stop war, in volunteering in different activities. So it was, like 24 hours a day for many of them. Also, it doesn't stop studying. Definitely the process of studying become more flexible. But still, we meet with students on a regular basis. So, and this kind of routine, helps somehow to keep going.
Well, this is very inspiring, and I can only imagine how the evolution took place, right? It was painful day to day, and at some point, like you said, you find yourself pushing your boundaries of comfort because it's necessary, especially when you need to be in service to others, your family, your students, your community. And you mentioned the sirens. I can also only imagine how triggering that is. It's almost like with every siren, your whole body is shaken and you feel like you're living the trauma of the unknown yet again, of expecting the worst yet again. I'd like to know from you, what has been the hardest thing for you to do or to navigate out of the things you mentioned or others?
I think I want to come back to one point in the previous
Please.
Thing. When you mentioned that when you're on the service of others, I think that it's a very important point, because one of my friends in the beginning of war asked me, how are you? It's a typical question. And I answered immediately that I'm a mother of 3. I can't be not okay, because when you're in charge of some processes, and when other like children that you are, and that time I was actually the only caregiver around them. So you can't be okay. So you do everything to stay calm, to stay to make decisions and to navigate reality and show others how to navigate this reality. So you learn, I don't know, new skills very fast in comparison with other people, for example, those who look at you for the answers. So it's very similar situation when you work with students and you just imagine you come to the room or to online, doesn't matter, and there are 30, 40, or doesn't matter how many eyes staring at you, and they just waiting for the answers to come, and you doesn't have these answers, but you understand that as much as you will stay present, stay calm for them, it's a very important information that yes, bad things happen, but we still operating, we still do meaningful things, we still develop our knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and it's fascinating because fascinating may not be the right word here, obviously, but you're not only teaching them the content, right, and helping them develop their skills and knowledge, you're also doing it in a very difficult and different context, which is also part of the learning process, especially that you are in the Department of Psychology and Psychotherapy, right? So it's like, it's almost like a double-edged sword or a double opportunity, one might call it, in a very ironic way. Go deep into this. Tell me more about that very experience engaging with your students during that time, and then we can go back to the question of what was the hardest.
Yeah, I am probably proud of myself that I teach also course with the master degree students who made, for example, their theses, which is very complicated stuff to do. And they have 2 years in Ukraine, because I know that in some countries you can have whatever time you need to prepare thesis, but in Ukraine it's still only a year or 2 while you study on master. So, and they do on a regular basis scientific work and etc. etc. So
like research projects, yes, and stuff.
Research, research project, and I know that almost all of our master degree students can defend their thesis in summer. So it means that they this or that way, but almost all of them get enough support not to leave this, not to I don't know, become too distracted by other things. And they always have a space where they can come and, do at least something small to move forward. And we still share these memories with the students. They're not students anymore, actually. Some of them now, I don't know, in charge of some rehabilitational centers, mental health services. So they do many, many beautiful work. But if then in that moment they didn't defend their thesis, they didn't get the diploma, and now they couldn't, continue professionally to help and to do very important things. Yeah, because when you have this perspective, it sounds different. Because from that moment, it's on a distance of 3 years. I think it's very important observation. Because when you're in an emergency, you just do everything to survive or to help others to survive, and you might very easily forget about importance, for example, of professional development, which can stop because of war or other more important things for your future. Yeah, please.
Well, this is the climax of what resilience is or can be, because at the core, you have to survive and deal with the threats and deal with the pain and infuriating, saddening situation around you, maybe infinitely so, and yet continue doing what you were doing under very, very stressful conditions. I mean, that is admirable, right? To be able to tap deep into one's human abilities to be resilient and determined to do those things that are difficult in normal times, let alone under such circumstances. So it's really very inspiring, and see people like you guiding them, mentoring them, helping them navigate all that. Maybe you can tell me, within this context, what was the hardest thing for you to do? To show up as a professor, as an advisor, as a mentor to your students, and putting the work in context, and yet guiding them to continue the work. What was the hardest thing to navigate?
I doesn't know what. I know how I navigated, and I think that when you listen to the moment, not thinking about the future ahead or some past events, you can understand what is important for people and make this work like a step by step with them. And when they see that one step, it's not at a time, it's not difficult, they do this step, and then you propose the next one, and they do the next one, and the next one, and then, we work together as long as it needed till the till the final point in time.
It takes deep wisdom and significant practice to be able to focus on the moment before you, right? As you know, as a psychologist, right? It's not easy to ignore the uncertainty of tomorrow, and the pain we might, be carrying from the past. But I certainly, I appreciate hearing about that, focusing on the moment. I hesitate to even ask you this question, and I hope the answer is in the negative. But many have lost loved ones, so male adults and young male adults in the family joined the front lines, had to be displaced, lives were shattered, right? Even though loss cannot be quantifiable, might you help listeners understand your situation a bit more intimately? Again, only if you care and are emotionally able to do so. How do you describe your loss over the last 3 years, besides of what you already shared and the trauma of it all?
I have a couple of thoughts to share here. At first, I would like to mention that every morning in Ukraine, and it's all over Ukraine, at 9 a.m. we have a minute of silence by everyone who are in the street, in a car, in a working place, without school. They just stay calmly for 1 minute. And it is a moment to reconnect with all people who currently at war or who are not longer with us. So I think it is very deep community practice, which keep us meaningfully together for what we are standing and what price we are paying on an everyday basis to live the life that starts after this minute will finish. As a university in this war, we lose around 40 people who are students or parents of students or teachers or some staff from university team, and it's always very painful and traumatic because you have known these students. I taught them, for example, and you know how brilliant they were, how shining person they were, and how much important things that they might do for the society in the future, because they had this potential, to shine. And yeah, so it's very painful to realize that their lives just stop one moment. And I have a feeling, and I think that many people have this feeling, that when it happened, so you start to live not only your life, but the life of those who are not longer with us. And through that, there are not many people currently here in this space, because some of them defend the country. And you know that most of those who defend the country, they're not militaries. They are former engineers, former teachers, former gardeners, sellers, businessmen, etc., etc. And so you need to work for yourself, and for to study for yourself, and for those who can't study currently, doesn't have or lose life, or so I have this feeling, I live with this feeling that I need to work, or for many people currently, not only for myself. Yeah, it's very painful. I think that one of my painful, I have many painful experiences during these times, but especially painful was, for example, to hear how mother sing lullaby near the coffin of your son, probably the last lullaby in her life for him. Or it was very painful to realize that the moment rocket fly, and you hear this explosion, and then you understand that it is the family who you know very closely doesn't live anymore, just in 1 minute. These people was in your room next to you, and the other moment they kind of disappeared because somebody on the side of the neighboring country just push a button and decide to take these lives away. But I believe that it's very meaningful pain. So I doesn't want to anesthetize this pain, so doesn't feel this pain. It's very important pain who has much wisdom how to live further, or how to remember, or with these people appropriately. Our university launched a couple of scholarships. Actually, almost all our losses, it's also about the future and about the scholarship and possibilities to get access to a good education for other children, so they can continue, this process of development, which those people couldn't because of the war.
My heart breaks hearing all that. It goes out to you and the families of all the ones who were lost, young and old, from the university and elsewhere. And I would very much actually like us in this moment to take a short moment of silence, short in duration, but clearly long in sending positive thoughts to those who are left behind. Might we take a quick moment of silence right here?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Anastasiia. We're doing this in their honor and their memory. If only the machines of war can sense the pain and see these stories. If we could just reconnect with what it is to be human, and how we all have the ability to survive, and yet the misfortune at times to experience pain that is exerted from the outside, I think would be a better world if people could do that. And I want to tell you, I very much appreciate your point about not becoming jaded and not anesthetizing the pain, not pushing it away, not ignoring it. It's very important in this moment, it seems to me, based on what you're saying, that you stay in touch with that and figure out how to navigate it. Given that, has your state of mind and maybe your approach to facing things changed over those 3 years? And if so, how?
On this question, I would like to share one of my experience of making research with NGOs who, from the first day of the war, actually take the whole responsibility for evacuation, for people, animals, for medical care, for supplying humanitarian aid, and etc., etc. So there are a lot of organizations all over Ukraine, and we actually research a question what helped this organization to stay resilient. And there was a question, what your personal traits help you? Because it's also about the approach to reality and sense of mind. And it was an open-ended question, so they can write down whatever they want to these answers. And I was surprised because mainly people doesn't like open-ended questions in research, but not this time. They actually write down beautiful things. But after the content analysis, I realized that they basically, the most often answers was three things that help to navigate reality and make you resilient, if you can use this word. So the first thing is purposefulness. You know, it's actually the ability to stay as long as it's needed, and even if you fall down, then stand back and continue to continue to do what you do. I think it's a very important trait.
I want to clarify though, Anastasiia, did you mean purposefulness or perseverance? I couldn't tell what you meant.
In Ukrainian, because it's translation, from Ukrainian,
right.
It's more translated as purposefulness. When you understand why, and when you understand why, you just keep going.
It makes sense. So like you have meaning, you have purpose, and that purpose keeps you persevering, keep you persistent.
Yes, okay. yes. But keep persistence, it's also important word here. Because you can feel pain or feel discouraged or face different obstacles, but still you doesn't discourage. You continue to do because it is very meaningful and you understand why you do it. Then the second trait is coping skills. Like ability to cope with stressors, and many people have absolutely different ways how they coping. For some it is sense of humor, for some it is connection with God, for some people it is ability to stay rational, not emotional when facing stressful situations. And the third trait, it's something not obvious. When I ask to guess people what it might be, they normally, but the same time in the answers, it was very often question, it is humanity. Actually, when you love people and when you enjoy to be with people and to help them, and when you realize that people are different, and with different experience, etc., but still, you love them to help them, and what I think, and I thought that times that there are a lot of literature how we pass trauma from generation to generation, and it's not a new things, but there is not much literature how we process this resiliency traits and pass also intergenerationally them. I believe that is something very valuable that these people who are currently involved in helping others as volunteers, as NGOs, etc., they have one more reason why they need to do it, I believe, because it's not only something about your life, but it is something very strong that you can pass to the next generation as a way of dealing with difficult moments in life. It was my insight from that research, the thing that I want to share with you, because it's also about the approach to life that changes, because it's, of course, it's traumatic reality and many people face this trauma, and from NGOs we know 95% faced at least one traumatic event, and of course they have signs of distress and some disturbances along the trauma symptoms, but at the same time, it's kind of separate line of development. You also bring to the inner world and to the outer world some very strong resiliency traits. So it's not counter-exclusive. Either you're traumatized or either you're resilient. It looks like they live together, and it's two separate tracks of development.
Well, it's as you know, in the IFS model, there's a reference to legacy burdens, right? Like you said, trauma that is passed on from generation to generation. I'm glad that you're talking about legacy gifts, that we can also pass on some of these gifts to the next generation in some fashion. And of course, there's capital T trauma and there's a lowercase t trauma, right? And for children, for when we were children, right, the lowercase trauma could be very significant in terms of its effects. And sometimes we spend a whole lifetime dealing with that little key trauma that we never resolve. So I'm only imagining what kids during this war on Ukraine experience, because it's a combination little t traumas with capital T traumas that's ongoing. So it's a world of complex trauma. And I'm curious, from your position as a psychologist, someone who's worked with your students during this difficult time, your family, your neighbors, your clients, are there predominant feelings and sensations and voices in our own head, in our own inner system, that seem to be predominant during these times, these difficult moments? And in this case, not just moments, but elongated months. Maybe you've observed them, or maybe you've experienced them yourselves. Might you share something more than what you already shared about that?
I think it's quite difficult question because the life is very different So, and in different circumstances, you need absolutely different adaptive strategies to survive and to live. We live. For me, it was a very big clash because the first, and even now, you live in two separate realities. One reality of war, and the other reality is quite normal life. Because when, for example, people came to Lviv, first they see beautiful cafes, streets, people going, talking, and then you go to the cemetery, where all of our fallen heroes buried, or you see the scratching noise of air alarm, or drone attacks, or you hear the stories from the pre-front lines. So you understand that it is absolutely different realities, and it is quite difficult to hold these both realities in one mind. And we see that people, there are a lot of people who forget about existence of this or that reality. Some are to go into war reality because, I don't know, their relatives are at war, and it is they facing this war events on a regular basis, so they can't forget about it. But they start to forget about the existence of normal life, and they're quite jealous about the people who can live as they think a normal life, and so and I think it is different world. And other people who also can't hold these two realities, they forget about the war, and they planning their summer holidays, and I don't know, some might complaining they get tired of this news, and etc. So it took a lot of, I suppose, mental energy not to forget about the both. And that's why it's different voices that present in this or that cases. And about the voices in head, I probably can mention only about my strong voices, yes, because I hear them on a regular basis. So definitely one of them is to stay strong. Because it's not only about me, but other people need to have somebody around who can deal with the reality. So this feeling to stay strong, it's very important.
Well, I wish you continued strength. I wish I could send you bouquets of strength on a regular basis to you and your loved ones. I identify somewhat with this polarization that you're talking about, this conflict within us between accepting the reality of war and seeing it in front of our eyes, and imagining a different reality and living it. And it could be dizzying going back and forth. I mean, I have had the misfortune to have spent my teenage years in a civil war myself. And I've experienced an attempt to shut down or dismiss the world outside, like you're saying. Except, of course, when the noise of attacks is too unbearable or the threat is imminent. And then I attempted to proceed with life in spite of all of that, in defiance perhaps, or for pure survival, with unshaken determination to keep going, whether going to school or university or going to a beach club or even a nightclub. Now, this is not normal on the face of it, but I would hasten to add that it feels as if our life is suspended in time, kind of like what you're saying, as if we are deferring the present and living outside of it, above it, in spite of it. So it is clearly a working survival mechanisms, and the real effects, not being easily able to change that at will, might come later in the aftermath. And I know it's not something we want to be worrying about right now. We want to worrying about going through this. But I'm curious to hear from you as an insightful, thoughtful observer, psychologist, mother, teacher, consultant, volunteer, someone who's been living in these conditions for 3 years in a country where you're born, in a country that you hold dear. What might you worry about today? What might you worry today will happen after all that settles? And hopefully it'll be settled sooner than later and in ways that honor your people's dignity, identity, and sense of cultural belonging. But might you give me some ideas of what might happen after all that comes to some meaningful resolution?
Yeah, also your narrative and your story remind me about one project that we did previous year, the whole year. To keep the long story short, it was the project, we call it Music for Healing, the Wounds of War. And it was basically about, as I see it, a trauma-sensitive concert of classical music. It's a public event.
Good.
So people just come to listen music, and then we do it in a kind of special way, which I just wrote an article about. So I doesn't want to go into the details, but I hope that it will be available sooner or later. So if somebody interested how to organize or how to do such a public events, actually, who can contract traumatic experiences, which is very interesting because I was very curious about it and I was very passionate the whole year about it. So passionate enough to write an article.
Sounds very promising. Sounds very promising.
Yeah. And after the concert, we invite people to share their experience of music. And what I realize that when you create enough safety in the room, people start gently touch their painful experiences. Not other way, not you invited them to share about their traumas, you know. Because I think that is kind of mistake when you sit in a room as a psychologist in your cabinet and wait until people come to share their stories with you, painful stories. As I see, sometimes people come, but mostly in the very critical cases. Most people need this or that help, but they want to be cared of, and that somebody hold them with a very gentle touch. So, and when we create this space and provide some music, for example, some cultural activity that they come to enjoy, you know, enjoy staying and to listen to music of inspiration or music of hope or music of childhood. And it was very popular. During the year, it was more than 800 people came to this concert, and they were on a regular basis, and etc. So it was amazing. And in the end of the event, people start to share their experiences of losing someone, for example, or in connection to the music and how they experience it. But it is very interesting. Actually, what I try to explain, that it is actually this moment when these two realities, you know, come together to one,
yes.
To integrate in one experience. And I believe that it's something we are really, really needed to create more safe places where people can meet each other and share their stories in a very safe way. And it has definitely a very healing effect. Yeah, and you know that the word healing, it's semantically come from word to be a whole. So experience your different parts or your different experiences.
It makes that wholesome. Yes. Almost integrating all of us, almost like
so it's
inner
helped to
integrity.
integrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's certainly a very interesting notion to create public spaces for post-traumatic healing, for post-traumatic collective engagement and sharing, kind of witnessing each other's experience and pain, and creating that collective container, if you wish, a place where people feel they're in a vessel toward a place of hope and healing.
And you also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because
No,
there
not
was
at
a
all,
second part in your question about the future, something about the future, and I definitely know, and there is a lot of talk around that when the war finished, we hope, but one day we become a community of veterans, because so many people engage in war. This is that way, and it possesses a very strong challenge, actually, to deal with all of these experiences. And it is actually continuing your thought about creating containers or trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive spaces, working spaces, leisure activity spaces, family spaces, where people can integrate everything they go through. So it's a very, very huge task, but definitely we think about it, and we expect it. That it's all very, very needed in the future.
Yeah, no question. It's a huge, immense task, and I trust that the Ukrainian people are up to that task. Just seeing how you've navigated today's reality. And I hope that moment will come here, like I said, much sooner than later, in ways that honor you as a people. Let's, though, however, come back to the moment, to now. The trauma is ongoing, and effective psychotherapy modalities may help people who are struggling with the post-traumatic event navigate through it. Well, today, the trauma is ongoing, complex, piling up deeper and deeper, which, of course, is heartbreaking and infuriating. So how can psychotherapy, from your experience, help in these situations? And what did you find could be effective from your own work as a therapist?
I think I had a statistic in mind. The statistic said that 7 to 9% of people actually look for the society mental health support, like psychology, psychotherapy, etc. But at the same time, almost 50%, it's statistic of 2024, 15% of people believe they need help. Psychological. So the conclusion is that there are much more people who need some kind of support, but they normally doesn't come to psychologists. And it's actually brings us back to the previous ideas of creating healing spaces and teaching people in the community to create such spaces, like teachers, volunteers, I don't know, humanitarian workers, doctors, whatever, these people, or cultural activists, theaters, philharmonic spaces where people can see each other and come to some public places. Yeah, that's one thing. Other thing that, and it always was, that psychotherapy, psychologist, it's a community of professionals who study almost always. New courses, new modalities, new some upgrade psychotherapeutic knowledges. Training of psychotherapists, they are always booked because people, are hungry for your knowledges. And in the case of war, it's even intensified because there are a lot of different initiatives to bring up-to-date modalities to Ukraine. I don't know, like EMDR, of course, psychedelic assistant, psychotherapy, biofeedback, IFS, etc., etc. And it is very valuable knowledge that we just need to integrate to our reality.
Yeah.
And I believe that people do their best to serve the best they can to their clients. Unfortunately, not all modalities deal with the inner reality of psychotherapists, as we talk in IFS with therapist parts. And we definitely know that sometimes your good intentions can do bad things. If your therapist parts so activated because of your some previous experiences and triggers that come from your clients, so you can do more harm. That's good. And even a good instrument in your hand might serve not a good you understand, yeah?
Yes, might not lead to positive outcomes. Yes.
Not a positive effect might have, yeah. So that's why I think that IFS, for me, IFS modality is very valuable because it helps to realize what is going on inside you and deal with this activated parts. And I think it is very valuable, something that we can add to any modality. And many therapists might use these instruments to be a better and more sensitive and more resonating with their clients.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. I'd like to amplify what you just said about the fact that most modalities just, the therapist knows skills and maybe techniques, tools that they bring to their clients. With the case of IFS, they do that. But just as importantly, if not more importantly, they have done their own inner work and they know how to try to be in a place where they can be fully present and quiet some of those parts or aspects of them that might be activated by their client story. So instead of living vicariously through their clients' traumatic or other experiences, they've done the work and they know how to navigate that. So it's like very interesting dynamic that takes place. And I want to take a moment here and recognize and applaud you, like I said in my introduction to you, or my bio review, that you have worked with a number of therapists in Ukraine and you've done IFS training, and now you're launching, with the help of the IFS Institute, the first IFS training for Ukrainian therapists. So I'd love to hear more about that. And again, I'm very pleased that the foundation was able to do what we did back when the war started, to plan a series of experiences for Ukrainian therapists, which with your help and innovation and that of many others have led to this place where you have established a new institute during a time of war to help with healing. Might you want to say a few words about that, Anastasiia? I'd like to give you the chance to put it in context. It's something that is very heartwarming.
I think it's words of gratitude to many people who supporting us for these years, and for those people who make this whole adventure possible. And because in the beginning, it was just for me. This IFS journey start from my colleague from US who proposed me to translate in Ukrainian relief initiative. I said, why not? And then I met Tom Holmes and Utofik and Lisa and other people who start to invest their energy into this space and their wisdom and knowledge. And then I met Anne-Katrine Bockmann and Cornelia Hess and other colleagues from Germany. And then there was our colleagues from South Korea who decided to support us. And so it was a collaboration of many energies and good intentions and something very human that help us to prepare our therapist on level 1 who can currently assist on our training. So it took a year, around the year time, to make this whole preparation, and we're finally on this point where we can proudly launch our own IFS level 1 program. And I hope and I pray that everything will be very, I feel that it should be very meaningful to our therapist. And and it's around, I don't know how many times. As I mentioned in the beginning, for me, it's like a whole life, not 3 years. But somewhere in this period of time, we start to build a community where we invite people from the IFS field to present some topics. And that's how we develop the idea of once a month meeting, just to people to come together, to listen and to share and to know more about this modality. And during this time, we collected quite impressive, quite impressive materials about different ways and different problems with which IFS practice might be very helpful. And show. And by these videos and these meetings, we show how Ukrainian psychotherapist said it makes sense to look deeper into the process. So when we launched this first initiative of level 1, I think it took around 2 weeks to complete the group, which I believe not. So it means that our community till this point was quite prepared to be interested in this modality and feel this healing power of IFS.
Well, I have to say, it's very impressive that you're able to, gather the folks. And like you said, it's been taking place on a monthly basis and beyond, that you built a community of interested practitioners who want to contribute in better ways to healing. And I have to say, from my own experience, I've been impressed by the rigor, by the extensive efforts, by the seriousness that you brought into this work. And at all times, throughout my, long-term engagement with you and your Ukrainian colleagues, I've always been moved by your smiles, by your caring, by your sensitivity. So kudos to you. It's certainly very inspiring to the rest of us to see this evolution. Congratulations, and I join you in prayer as well that everything works well and it be a valuable experience for all. I'm looking at the time, and I'd like to ask you one last question before I give you the final words in a few moments, Anastasiia. What would you share with someone experiencing military conflicts? And unfortunately, the world today rarely lacks such instances. What do you tell them so they can help themselves navigate these moments, these unimaginably stressful and scary conditions, a bit differently than they perhaps are navigating them today? What would you tell them?
I think that I had a conversation with the people uh, from places where war also may make or made a huge damage. And I feel that some of these people are very discouraged, and they believe that there is so much pain and so much destruction and so much suffering that you as an ordinary woman or man just, can do nothing about this. And what my experience showed me is that even a very small interaction might be very healing, and even an hour of caring when the people felt scared and felt heard, and can take inside some beauty, which definitely present in caring relations. It's work like we call it like an island of safety, and sometimes to stay even on a small island of safety, it's better than drawn in the ocean of pain, or some bad things that happened around. I think it makes a lot of sense to create this beautiful moments. And what is also important, and it is in IFS philosophy as well, is that people are very beautiful inside. And sometimes they even doesn't know how much beautiful they are and how much light they can bring to this world. So sometimes you can, if and when you can show this these people, they start to shine in different colors and different energies. Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope that it might bring some hope to other people who doesn't believe that small efforts make sense,
Well, I'm very touched by this conversation, Anastasiia. I got to know you a little bit better. I've always been impressed by your disposition and thoughtfulness. This was very profound, very meaningful. And, today's conversation, in the midst of the tragedy of war, of loss of dear ones and belongings, of displacement, uprooting of families, tension, stress, anger, and fear, I think this conversation may remind us that resilience may be like a stubborn flower rising through a crack in the concrete. It's not always readily available, nor is it guaranteed to be there when we need it. But in certain moments, vigilance, survival, sheer determination to keep going are phases of that resilience. Being able to connect with others, like you said, being in service to others, reminding ourselves that we can help. These are all very important elements of how we might get to that place of fortitude. Resilience clearly is not the absence of pain or fear. You made it very clear. Those two things live together. It is rather our ability, perhaps inherent in us, if we know how to tap into it. It's rather our ability to stay connected, to keep pushing, to see the possibilities when things may look bleak. The sun will rise, yet in the interim, many of us struggle in the dark of night. I wish all of us endurance and strength of will, love of family and friends, and especially you, my colleagues, and your people in Ukraine, and all those undergoing the pain of war. So back to you, Anastasiia, for a closing word. What gives you hope and resilience at this moment?
I think in this moment, probably conversation with you. And yeah, I also very touched and go quite deep inside together with you. And in general, in life, I woke up every morning with the thoughts that there is so much good things, so much good things we can do for this world, to leave it with the better energies than it was before us. And I think that it helps to keep going and invite other people to do the same, to do some, small miracles to one another. Because what you did for us, it's for us was a miracle. And what we do to other people, it's, I hope, sometimes might feel like a small miracles to them. Yeah.
What a beautiful word to end with. Miracles, and many of us believe in them, and we are channels, instruments of miracles in many ways in our own little spaces. Anastasiia, thank you so much. I thank our listeners for joining, and blessings to all. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Facing the Moment is an independent production of the Foundation for Self-Leadership, a nonprofit committed to bringing emotional, relational, and societal healing and well-being to a world in need. Learn more at foundationifs.org. You can download this and all other episodes on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Until the next episode, may we all keep facing the moment with grit and grace.